Okay, so thanks everyone for coming to our November AI and Values seminar. Today we have the speaker Asma Derja, who is going to talk about AI as a human rights issue, value chains, consequences, and community-led governance. So thank you, Asma, for coming, and please introduce yourself and go on. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, Thomas, and thanks to everyone who's attending. My name is Asma. I am based in Spain. I'm Moroccan Tunisian, typical immigrant story, who spent her last 15 years working in tech and mostly in digital transformation. My last job was at Amazon AWS. Strategizing with executives to implement AI, but I left. Around this time, 2 years ago, in 2023, I left, and I'll tell you why this is important in the story and what I've been doing in the last 2 years and why it should matter to you too. So I think part of my job was very, very interesting, but quite frankly, it was almost being part of something that looked like progress. But the more I was doing this job, the more I saw things that really bothered me. And once you start seeing them, you cannot unsee them. I'm going to start by I'm not saying the least important, but I'll go gradually to the last drop. Culturally, it was dominated by Western-centric views. It was very white, male-dominated, Silicon Valley, top-down. Even Europe had barely anything to say, let alone the global South. Gender issues, I think gender was approached as a, D&I plug-in at the end. Women's safety wasn't necessarily a topic addressed in the design of the technology. And we'll break down this, as we go in the next couple of slides. Environment. I've been me and a lot of people in the company were pushing very hard to get sustainability and carbon footprint in everything we've done, but eventually we got a huge pushback. And while there is some reporting, it's very superficial and it's almost like just ethics washing. I think the last drop for me was as I was overseeing Europe and Middle East and Africa, was seeing major contracts for cloud infrastructure pushed towards military and defense in countries that have been currently under investigation for war crimes and genocide. So I took a stance and I left. But because of all the background I had in, implementing and designing, I thought I could bring something to the AI governance field, something that was very tangible. I'll tell you more about it as we go forward. By the way, I think I wrote my name in the chat and I'm happy to take questions. I don't know, Thomas, how you usually do it, but if you write down as we go questions, we can have a Q&A at the end. And should be interactive and very human. So yeah, this all led me to ask myself, what is really AI's end game, behind all this hype of AI and productivity and efficiency, which isn't even happening. What is really the end game, right? And so you start looking at all these aspects and the human aspect and the communities impacted. You start seeing another, kind of another definition of what artificial intelligence is. And that's what I'm bringing you today. I know we have an interdisciplinary team here, which is wonderful because I think this is the first step to engage in real talks about how can we make AI ethical by design. But I think the aspect I want to bring today is really around tangible impact of the technology. So basically, my conclusion after 2 years of mapping AI harm, and during these 2 years, I've been really in platforms and conferences and convenings from the most sort of radical, where real the harm is discussed bluntly without any gatekeeping, like rights gone by Access Now or Mozilla Festival, to some platforms that are far more sanitized and very Western centric, such as some EU forums, or I think there's someone who's yeah, not on mute. That'd be great. Thank you. To some forums that was much more sanitized, and my conclusion over the last 2 years was, first and foremost, AI is material, it's political, and it's lived impacts. That's the very first definition I would come with. The AI harm that we're seeing are not just abstract. They are real, they're tangible, they're measured, and they are directly impacting communities and people, from children to women to everyone. Second, it's driven by extraction, surveillance, and profit. And we'll see why. Extraction, it's all minerals. Data centers are not built on an actual cloud. Cloud is actual material. It's labor, it's land, it's people. We're seeing a surge of surveillance, spyware, and etc. on cloud infrastructure that we're using for commercial. So it's a lot of dual use technology. And profit would disregard to anything else than just profit, like no social consideration whatsoever. And I think last, how can I get rid of this? Big tech cannot be trusted. There has been, and I will share some of these reports, big tech companies have been considered now by Amnesty International, for example, a human rights organization, are calling out big tech as a human rights issue. And I think this is the first time, it's a shift in the narrative, that big tech is literally called out by an international human rights organization. So all in all, AI harms are systemic and they're not accidental. And that's the main message I want you to go with today. And I'll show you why. Okay, so let's talk about the environmental costs. Let me just get rid of this. As I said, sorry. As I said, it all starts with, if you look at the value chain of AI, and I generally include cloud infrastructure in AI. In my definition, socio-technical definition of AI, the one I chose, we have to include the infrastructure that's powering the technology, not just the LLMs, not just the models, but actually where it actually starts. It starts by water that was supposed to go to communities. It starts by metal. And we'll see more data on this, and land and labor. So AI's infrastructure is depending mostly on rare earth mineral. And we see that in, for example, in the case of Congo, with the cobalt or other minerals, employing miners and obviously not getting a fair pay. There's many reports. Second, we have toxic e-waste disposal. Data center generate a huge amount of waste containing mercury and lead, and usually it's outsourced to poorer region. You don't see big data center in the middle, I don't know, of Vienna or Brussels, right? You'll see it mostly in marginalized communities, in neighborhoods that are not able to speak up for themselves, or refuse that sort of decisions. There's a vast water and energy consumption, and I know recently there's some people who spoke out to say, well, it's not that amount of water that we're saying, it's less. It doesn't matter, potato. The most important is that the growth of data center and the emergence of data center is going to need water. Whether it's 6 more or 10 more, in some cases, it really, truly, it's already impacting communities. And in the next slide, you'll see some of these stories. So we have over 8 million data center worldwide, with environment demands continuing to accelerate with every model generation. we build. So yeah, some of these stories, just some of these harms surfacing, in investigative journalism or reports are telling us, like you have the example, just what we know. Imagine what we don't know. How Oregon's data center boom is supercharging water crisis for people, for civilians. How AI is draining water, but not from any area, from areas that need it most. Again, going to marginalized communities because it's easier to extract, repeating colonialist, patterns. An AI data center in, for example, Texas used 463 million gallons of water as residents are told to take shorter showers. The question really, is it worth it? Is all this worth it? What are we doing? Are we even curing cancer? The promise of OpenAI, as back then when it used to be a nonprofit, was to cure cancer. But right now, we are seeing more, developing technology that is addictive for kids and so on and so on, and going into erotica and so on. So it's very important to keep this in mind as we do. There's always a trade-off, and some of the biggest is our planet. So yeah, as I said, water used by big tech is really opaque. Communities don't know how much is being extracted, but we see these stories coming more and more. If you keep track of the harm, you actually see it on a daily basis. So we looked a bit at the value chain and water, metal, land, labor. Just a few examples because we can just talk about. We just today just kind of browse some of these topics, but I think the important part that is not addressed in a lot of governance forums and people who claim to want to regulate or govern this technology is society. And I think the impact on society is probably the most important. AI is water, is labor, is land, but it's also consequence. And these are just some of the headlines that should be probably at the start of every AI governance talk or AI talk. Using killer robots. There is today no regulation for AI in autonomous weapons. We've seen that in the case of Gaza. We've seen also AI being used, AI deepfakes being used for children. We're seeing AI demolish in education, and we're seeing, a cultural war and with humans and algorithms. And sorry, if you're expecting a session on how great AI is, this is not going to be it. So mostly my job is to first make you aware, but then I still believe there is hope, but there are solutions, but it's important to be aware of what's happening and that to understand that these are not isolated incidents, that they are actually patterns over regions. So basically my team and I looked at all these harms and we were shocked to see that every time we went to some of these governance places, we didn't talk about these harms. We talked about technical safety, about standardization, international standards. You can find an ISO 42001 for AI. You can find IEEE. These are all standards and technical safety, but they don't mention anything about human rights. So we didn't understand. So if you really put in safeguards, how is this? So something, an AI, technology that can be deemed as technically safe can still actively harm. And that was our exam question. How do we then hold technology builders and big tech accountable for what they're building? Because clearly what we have right now is not enough, not nearly enough. The distort between what's being said in those forums and hiding behind technical safety only, and the harms and the consequences and the impact on society. So based on this tension point, that's the tension point we've explored together with my team. We first wanted to see what's happening. These harms that I've mentioned, some of them, we wanted to see them on a systematic level. So we've decided to build a prototype of an AI harm map. I'm gonna try to share it. Let's see. I'm taking you now to our website. So if you, this is our website. You can go. It's a prototype of a word map with current AI harms from vetted sources and auditable trail and everything. And basically, and sorry, it's the Thomas, I don't know if the chat is saying something important. Just let me know. Feel free to let me know, to unmute yourself and tell me.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So yeah, so this is a prototype. Obviously, we're doing that as a grassroots community, unfunded and not backed, but we've coded actually our own version. And the idea was really, if you put all these harms into one map, you can actually start detecting patterns, and you can understand that these harms are not just an accident. They are actually by design. And you can start to study regions or patterns, gender patterns, global south patterns, you name it. In the case, and our goal is still to work together with local nonprofit civil society on the ground to capture these harms, because even now what we're getting, so for example, all these examples on data center and community and water came from the US, because there is investigative journalism in the US. There is conscience, and even though bad things are happening, there's some sort of transparency, and then things surface. But go to, I don't know, Morocco, my own country, or go to Colombia, or go somewhere else, and it's much harder to capture these harms. So our idea is not to capture them, but we know for fact that there are organizations doing it on the ground. So we want to show it here and be able to take this to the governments. In the case actually of Palestine, we've worked together with an organization called Hamla, and we've who reports and capture online harm. So here you can find, if you zoom, actually, you hover over, and then, hold on, let me see. So when you touch one harm, it gives you basically, it should also have something here in the bottom. I don't know, because maybe I zoomed too much. Hold on. Yeah. So you can see, and then you can read more basically and see where this is coming from. It's all a data set that we maintain and that we vet and audit, and it's our community work. Let me go back to the presentation, but what I was trying to tell you with that is this is the first step. The first step is to understand that these harms are not just punctual. They are systemic, and it's important to understand that if we want to address them and if we want to bring accountability to the table. And I was like, I thought it would be interesting to take you through some of these harms and understand some of the consequences of AI. And some of these are coming straight from our harm map, and then explain how we want to tackle this, and maybe we can get into more of a live conversation. Yeah, so one of the biggest, I think, major harm we're seeing across border really is surveillance and rights violation. That's very clear. And I think from the US, where ICE is using immigration software by Palantir to track immigrants, to the same, basically. In fact, Palantir across border, and also other companies, European Parliament approving mass surveillance of migrants. If you are not seeing these news, it's because sometimes they don't make it to the mainstream. But today it's migrant, tomorrow it's, I don't know who here is a migrant, but tomorrow is you. There is no limit to the appetite of national defense, let's say, tech market. And the issue, the biggest problem also, is that the cloud infrastructure powering this surveillance spyware is the same one powering your WhatsApp and daily conversation. There is no more uh, line, between commercial and military. And this doesn't come, I'm quoting here world-class researcher in AI military. We've been cooperating with some of the leading voices in AI military regulation. And they've said they've never seen these lines so blurred. They cannot, it became commercial, military became almost one, and we're going into that direction. So the issue here really is AI and state power. Like as I said, approving mass surveillance migrant, policing borders and criminalizing mobility, and migrants becoming test subject for high risk technology. And again, vulnerable community as the testing ground for technologies. That also doesn't mean that you're protected. As I said, this always starts with vulnerable and to be deployed on a larger scale. Second one is really powering oppression and war crimes. I've written a lot about this from a governance perspective because my core competence and skill is really into cloud infrastructure. And as I've seen it firsthand, now I know that Microsoft is doing it, and we work together with some people who have been speaking up against this. It's important to understand that, again, these are cloud, these are data centers that are in Europe. They were in Holland and in Ireland. And they are, think what you want about, politically, that's not the point. The point is that data centers in our continent are storing civilian data of a country that's in war, that is outside the EU, for a foreign company, for a US company. So there's and therefore it's not regulated by the EU AI Act because it's extraterritoriality or national defense. So it's incredibly so the big tech is using loopholes, but also because there's no understanding of the mainstream of the risk that this is creating for us civilians here in Europe, and therefore these things keep happening. So just to tell you a little bit what is happening, Microsoft Cloud stores intercepted Palestinian phone calls, empowering surveillance in conflict zones. AI used as a tool of geopolitical control, high-tech surveillance and data analytics being used in the West Bank, for example. And tech companies really in complicit in human rights violation. And that's, again, not coming even from me. This is coming from major human rights organizations. And when tech companies have been asked to be held accountable, there has been no response. In fact, there's nobody now that can hold them accountable. And that's really, again, the topic we're exploring. I don't think there's one answer. As we're going to see, there isn't one direct line of accountability. I think it's going to be on multiple fronts. Okay, another type of harm that's very, very disturbing. It's harm to children and social manipulation. So it's became clear now and factual that Meta is building products addictive by design. They know it, but they downplay the harms. Their guidelines for children's safety are minimal, and we know now that there are multiple filings, for revealing that Meta had a 17-year-old strike policy for sex trafficking. 17 strike policy, not 17 years old. Strike policy, so you could incur up to 16 violation, and only starting the 17th, your account would be suspended. A lot of Meta employees have said that Instagram was built really compared to a drug. So these are all happening. This is all happening in the news recently. And again, what do we get from this? The idea is not just to get scared. I'm not trying to build fear. It's important to understand that, again, these are patterns. These are not just here and there an issue. You hear in the news, unfortunately and sadly, there was some teenagers that indulged in self-harm and completed suicide. And it's extremely sad for their families and for everyone, quite frankly. But when you look at it on a macroeconomic level, you actually see that this is happening by design, that nobody at Meta's guideline children's safety level has raised any concern or have been dismissed for that. So again, what we remember is that Meta had a 17 strike policy for sex trafficking. Can you imagine? 16 completely ignored, and up until the 17th before an account suspension. And that internal documentation corroborating corporate negligence. So profits over user safety. And in that case, user is kids. Enabling harmful and illegal content to spread with minimal consequences. And these are all going now in court. I mean, we don't know how this is going to end, but again, like the power concentration within big tech is just too big to be good for society. Yeah, so companies, what do usually they do, like indulge in a lot of downplaying, of the harms. They go into these, some of these forums. In fact, they sponsor some of those convening. I've seen that. They bring their own speakers to downplay the harms, when in fact internal researcher identifies severe mental health risk, and they warn. They usually dismissed, or Meta knows them, for example, and then still choose to prioritize growth metrics. Yeah, proposed safety features, they're usually put in deprioritized. Really, growth metrics are the absolute priority, and that's exactly what I've seen. Again, back to my own story, the little bit I've seen from my corner of the world can only confirm this. Yeah, the issue again is the issue isn't necessarily that these platform exists, because some people would tell you this platform helped organize uprisings in some countries. I can tell you like what happened with Gen Z in Morocco a couple of weeks ago, just 3 months ago, I believe, or when Gen Z were just asking for better education and better hospitals and healthcare. They've used Instagram and TikTok to organize. And Meta will proudly say this again and every. However, they are also engineered, the same platform are engineered for addiction. Again, calling this same platform as a drug, internal meta communication, people saying we're basically pushers, and addiction prioritize over user well-being. So it's still a very important priority for me to address. And it's not because you're allowing uprising and whatsoever that you're allowed to do this. Yeah, there's again also harmful content exposure. Algorithms are not detecting harmful content the way they should be. Teens frequently exposed to dangerous material and inadequate enforcement and accountability. Again, I would, yeah, probably even less than inadequate. It's probably even absent. Another type of harm is the gender and racialized harms. In AI scraping pretty much everything today. I mean, AI is based really on art theft, but in the case of Black voices, for example, and faces, it's even more flagrant. It's AI companies have been scraping Black voices and cultural data without consent, turning lived identities into training material for profit. Large data sets used for facial recognition and Gen AI disproportionately harvest data from Black communities. This same system amplify racial bias, misclassification rates for darker skin. These are all, studies, MIT, and so on. And again, showing that marginalized communities are the very first line when it comes to AI harm. About 3 days ago, November 25th was the International Day of Elimination of Violence Against Women. I think it's important to remind the audience that gender-based online violence is growing with AI. There has been a report from UN, the UN Women. I studied this report just a couple of days ago. It's alarming. So what usually is already happening on the real life and physically is very much amplified with AI. Targeting AI violence targeting disproportionately toward women. Platforms amplifying gendered harassment, etc. And also content moderation failing to prevent online abuse. And yeah, silencing of marginalized voices. So let's move to the next. Let's see, let's go. I think my browser just got tired of AI harms. Yeah, my screen is freezing.
But we can hear you well. So
Yeah, it'd be nice though to have it. Let me see.
there you go.
No, that's the website. Hold on.
Ah,
Let me just
reload.
see. Yeah, reload. Let me take a look at the chat in the meantime. Has there been any question? I mean, or Thomas, are you reserving the time?
No, no, no. There are no questions so far.
Okay,
But
cool.
if anybody wants to comment at this point, it is a perfect timing.
Okay, otherwise I'll just go back. Hold on. Okay, let me just stop sharing for a sec.
So if in the meantime, I would like to get your view on the kind of sensing the temperature on how much engagement do you find in the academic world on these issues? Because you have been to summits and meetings and you have been in the spaces where this is discussed. And when we have lunch at the university, wherever university I have been to many this year, these things kind of pop up, especially among younger people, and they kind of worry a lot about it. But that's just the worry you have about, like during lunch worry kind of thing. So then the question is, how much do you see this happening? And how could we eventually gather this worry or this interest, this energy, and put it into some concrete action, like in your alliance, for example, or something like that? So,
Yeah, thanks, Thomas. So, um, I was shocked when I was told that in the AI, because I've been out of the university now for a while, but I was shocked when I was told by people in some again top universities that there was not much, like there wasn't, ethics wasn't really studied of AI, wasn't in the branches of AI, but some researcher and some educators have been pushing for that. I know for a fact that at an individual level, they've been pushing for that, but not at an institutional. The institutions don't seem to have, um, I don't know, either awareness or interest in putting this into the curriculum. You know, you cannot study AI or computer science if you don't study the ethics of it. Because at the end of the day, that will we're building generation of engineers that are completely insensitive to human and social impact. I've been approached by, for example, Imperial College in London, because one educator, one professor is very keen on bringing that module of ethics in AI. So we've been co-designing something for them. But again, if it wasn't her individual effort to doing and her looking, to bring that, and again, it's unpaid and this pro bono work, and but is like, and I'm shocked that this isn't something driven by institution. Now, when it comes to policy forums and governance forum, I haven't seen honestly much academia, or academia was brought in as a subject matter expert to speak on a particular research, and that's it. No, really, I haven't seen collaboration beyond meaningful collaboration, as in these research being plugged in to the decision making. I think those people who are making decision on AI governance in this Brussels forum for it, it's really mainly talking about standardization, and I think they're definitely. I'm not, and I'm just saying I haven't seen any meaningful, very tangible collaboration, to be honest.
mhm.
But
And
we can
then
talk. I have, yeah.
the
Say again,
second
sorry.
part of the question, sorry, yeah, I was expecting this, but the second part is like, how do you see the potential? Because there is lots of individual efforts, maybe not as many as needed, but there are quite some. And also, I know that among the younger generation, especially, there is a lot of energy that is being, let's say, underutilized for this awareness, raising awareness and this kind of thing. So, how do you see that?
Yeah, I think I've been very surprised by the conscious, how conscious Gen Z, for example, were of AI harm. I've heard them in panels themselves saying we feel like we don't have agency anymore over our destiny that's been taken from us, through. Uh, but again, they're very clueless on what to do. To be honest, all of us are. I mean, we're just experimenting here, and I don't have the answer to everything. I've been from my corner trying to link, to the dots, and because I'm genuinely motivated by my desire of human rights. But I think I actually reserved the end to talk about my community and maybe potential for collaboration. So maybe we will get back to this, Thomas, towards the end. Actually, we could already jump there, but I think I see a hand being raised here by Francis, I believe.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I would very much like to disagree with the fact that universities and others don't pay attention to AI ethics. I'm teaching a course on ethics of technology, and I've done a review. There are at least 6 dozen big conglomerates that have been looking at the AI, the ethics of AI, including the EU, the UNESCO, the IEEE. I think that AI is about the thing that gets most people thinking about ethics. So I really don't think that's a lack of study in academia. But of course, because it's new, you can't expect to have ready-made answers soon. But there are lots of attempts, and this seminar series is one of them.
Wonderful. No, I'm again, I haven't checked anyone, but for example, the University of Edinburgh reached out. They don't have a group. So what I'm saying is that I didn't see something. It's not at the level, at least I was hoping, to find a curriculum. A lot of the people also I'm getting into the community are junior, just freshly graduated, and they never studied ethics in AI. But I'm really happy to hear of the initiatives that's happening. And just this, like you said, this is already a step. But yeah, I haven't really, I don't have a full picture, but what I'm seeing, I wasn't quite satisfied. But wonderful to hear these efforts, and happy to be part of this effort as well. Cool. Shall we just maybe, honestly, we can also stop. I mean,
If
I
you
didn't know.
have more slides to share and still
Yeah,
there
let
possible to share, okay, we can
yeah,
continue.
yeah, of course we
Not, we
can,
can just
because
move to. Mhm.
I think we have more like the epistemic harms, and then we can talk about maybe, yeah. Yeah. I think this harm speaks a lot also to academia and researcher, but I don't think I'm gonna tell you anything you don't know, honestly, like in terms of misinformation and hallucinations and AI models hallucinating with confidence, giving false information with high certainty, leading to reports and decisions with the highest stakes to be taken and made. GPT-5 caught fabricating historical facts. And please be sure that anything in these slides are really fact-based and fact-checked. So there is a list of sources and of all of these. And I know if it feels a lot, it's because it is. It's not me trying. It's just because gathered in one session, it can feel overwhelming. But it really is a reality when you look at it. Delusional output spirals, undermining trust and information. Really, I think we've seen. Hold on, it was nice. Okay, there was a slide about, like, I don't know where it is, but there was used to be a slide on ChatGPT fake in history. There was a historians recently completely shocked to see complete new paragraphs invented and completely created by GPT-5 and Copilot, I believe. And then AI risks in legal system. Just, I think, 2 days ago, an AI deepfake was submitted as an evidence in a California court. It appears to be one of the first times, and probably won't be the last. Thinking about how people can be wrongly convicted, and really justice, like healthcare, like education, like philosophy, like art, isn't really prepared for synthetic data and evidence. I think there is, again, patterns through fields, through countries, understanding that this hasn't happened in California, but in a few weeks it might happen in Brussels or whatsoever. Oh yeah, that was the AI rewriting of fake in history. So I'm gonna slowly take us through the end of this, because I really don't want you to all leave depressed from this conversation. This is 2 years of documenting AI harms, but frankly, it is not documenting for the sake of documenting and because it makes me happy to look at the harms, but it was important, as I said, to understand what's happening and draw analogies and patterns from this data and start from actual consequences, not a top-down approach, not technical safety only. And that's Francis, back to what I've seen a little bit around in Europe, is and I don't know, in the curriculum you've mentioned how much we talk about ethics as also consequences and human rights. And where do we draw the line? When August 28th, so basically 3 months ago, Amnesty International published a 50 pages report. I encourage everyone to take a look. Breaking up with big tech, a human rights based approach, argument for tackling big tech's market power. 50 pages of human rights and private rights, freedom violations documented. And so what? Okay, so here we are. Our data is being processed without consent, to train models, etc., etc. What do we do? How do we go about this from now? I don't have the answer. I don't have the answer, but in the meantime, we've come together, some people, from this is just a slice of our team. We just met recently in Mozilla Festival, which I really recommend in terms of digital rights, and a really nice place where you can source a lot of these things that I mentioned are coming from there, like civil society, thousands of people gathering for 3 days. And my team and I were there, but really who we are, we've started, by connecting over, I think we're values aligned. We're global by design. Everyone sits somewhere, interdisciplinary. And I think that is probably the most important thing, because tech alone is not able to fix their problems. I mean, if they were able to do it, they would have done it. We need artists, we need researcher, academia, practitioners. We need everyone, lawyers, etc. And so we're trying to address, again, this growing disconnect between AI harms and existing accountability structure, which we think are not enough, obviously, because if the map I showed you is happening, all our failures, actually, of governance, every dot on that map, and it's only a prototype. We stopped at, I think, 100, because, again, we were not funded. Every dot you see is a failure of AI governance. And so we've consolidated these AI harms, already documented by civil society, creating a systemic visibility layer. And we convene a global co-creation space where, again, we say technologists, sociologists, artists, activists, policy thinkers, and affected communities are collaborating to build new pathways for accountability. So this is really what we stand for. We don't claim to have all the answer, but we're builders. So we're experimenting with the AI harm map, and we're basically really focusing on translating this evidence into some sort of legal and governance frameworks. Because our exam question is really accountability at an institutional and board level. My life mission now is to see this ending at a board level, because nothing will change if it's only public policy of Meta or Google dealing with this. I know how they work. They never get to business. It's a complete separate function, and they're only there to mitigate risks. What we want is that these harms are incorporated into the product design. And so when they become a boardroom priority, it's only then top down they'll go into KPIs and business incentives. Our 3 pillars really is evidence infrastructure through the systematic reporting. So we call on collaboration, to go back to Thomas' question, collaborating with academia to take, we have started a collaboration with Barcelona Supercomputing Center. They have some researchers from Latin America that have been working on documenting harms there. So we're going to work with them, just as an example. But then it doesn't stop there. The idea is not just to have a fancy, nice map. The idea is really to analyze cross-regional detection, and patterns, recurring harms across sectors, community, geographies, and we're open to ideas. This is really a public service. Honestly, it's open source basically, but we still own the data set so that it's clean and audited and etc. etc. And this doesn't stop there. The main goal really is to create that accountability pathway, translating this evidence into legal action, into policy pressure, and board level governance frameworks. Yeah, I'm going to end with something. I know after all this doomy, gloomy picture I gave you of AI today, one of my favorite thinkers is a sociologist called Ruha Benjamin. She's written a lot about, race and technology. And she's actually in Mozilla Festival in Barcelona, she was the keynote speaker, and she talked a lot about imagination. I think it's the worst case scenario is that these things happen, but we can also, and then they take away our ability to imagine. And she said something as in imagination, not as in fantasy, but like imagination as rooted in something that actually community led, and that can be indeed something we aspire to. So she said, like, remember to imagine and craft the words you cannot live without, just like the one, just as you dismantle the ones you cannot live within. I think the dismantling part is what I told you about today, dismantling the abuse, the human right violation, the children's safety, and all the stuff, but also build an AI that can cure cancer, that can help predict rainfall, drought. There's so many amazing use cases. Our hope is that once we get the first map, for AI harms, that we have an AI use cases, good AI, just AI serving humans, and humanity and the planet in another map, showing you good use cases and enabling collaboration on many aspects. So with this, I think this was my last slide. Feel free. This is a QR code for the map, but obviously you can just reach out to me or go to ethicalaialliance.org, and very happy to collaborate again across fields and disciplines, and especially with academia. Yeah. So thank you.
Thank you, Asma. Thank you for this eye-opening
Thank you.
seminar. I guess that we all need to start talking about this and many other issues that are related to this. But I think that we have to benefit from the time we have together now. So, Chitra, would you like to say something?
Hi, Asma. It was really an enlightening presentation. I was particularly drawn to what you mentioned about data centers. Malaysia, well, we're aspiring to be the ASEAN AI hub. And the current government is pushing very aggressively towards this. So what we have noted is there are many data centers that are cropping up. In fact, Malaysia and Singapore, they are competing for the contracts on data centers. I'm particularly keen on issues pertaining to corruption because I work with the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Academy under the Commission on corporate governance issues. So my question is, how do you think that data centers actually compromise human rights through corruption, environmental harm, and governance failures? And I guess the question I wanted to also ask is who bears the cost ultimately? I mean, in terms of evidence and proof, of course, our first answer would always be, oh, the stakeholders, the public, the community. But what are we actually looking at? And having said that, I'm actually very keen. I've come on board today because I'm very keen to collaborate with anyone who wishes to undertake a publication in this area. Thank you, Asma.
Thank you so much. I think this is such an important question. I'm gonna just actually it reminded me on a case. So I'm not very informed on Malaysia, but I've attended a lot of African related discussion around AI, and every time the main topic was really this race to compute power. It was Kenya and Nigeria mostly. So who is going to build the most data centers, because that's really what progress means. I'm so torn because I know what a data center also means. It means water, energy, and if I take a step back, because before, like, I'm not sure I even have a clear answer to your question, but if you look at it, Africa in the value chain, and so is Malaysia actually, and the Philippines, and some of the global majority. At the value chain, the workers are doing a lot of the data labeling. They're doing the cheap labor for AI. So before any model is being built, they take the huge amount of data and they're being labeled, as in this content is this, this content is. There's usually guidelines given by big tech, and that there's some contractors, and they hire thousands and thousands. We don't have a clear number, up to $2 an hour doing this job, and so this data then flows into our models, and so some things that come out, all of this input is output of the models is coming from the value chain. What I'm trying to say is Malaysia sit in that part of the value chain, and still they want to do the compute power and build those data centers. What for? At the end of the day, to power probably big tech that is in the global north, and then take the technology as a receiver. Because what I'm seeing is just this race for the infrastructure, but I'm not seeing any real investment in the technology to serve these countries. And that's why I don't know, again, I didn't say, like, I don't have a specific example on Malaysia, but this is what the pattern I've seen in Africa. They're all just running in this conversation saying, we're building this mega data center, while we know for a fact that this is going to be used again to build and power technology, and eventually the benefit will go there. I don't have particular also data on corruption. This isn't something we've tackled, but this is such a good insight. Honestly, I believe in this race for AI and in building these data centers, and where you build them, and who is going to be a public discourse, and I'm sure interests, conflicts of interest, and power politics that will lead to obviously corruption. And I've seen big tech, and we know it from the report, is very close to some governments. And so I'm not surprised when you say that there's corruption there. So multiple elements, but my biggest concern is that even this race for compute power in Africa and global South isn't gonna yield to any progress. We know that because it's just history repeating itself, different patterns. It's just the value chain, the cheap labor and extraction part of the value chain that's been, offshored to our countries to power the progress elsewhere. I think there's another Sukiko. Is that? Oh, sorry, that was it your name?
Thank you, Asma.
Oh, you hug.
Yeah. Thank you. Asma, it has been fascinating presentation, and I wanted to answer your question of how we can actually hold big tech and states accountable, because we cannot. So the examples you have been presenting, from surveillance infrastructures to social networks harming children and whatnot, they are architectural, and there is collusion, as you just said, about infrastructures and the countries racing to get the contracts. So these systems are built on data extraction and opaque algorithms and infrastructures that concentrate power in ways that traditional regulation simply can't keep up with. So in my opinion, if the power is infrastructural, the counterpower also has to be infrastructural. And this means building accountability into the technical substrate itself, not hoping platforms behave better or governments to take care of their citizens, because as we have seen recently, it's not the case. So I think first we need auditability by design, with verifiable login and traceable model changes and transparent data flows. And then decentralized oversight, meaning redesigning our data architectures, because platforms can scrape, as you said, because users do not own their own content. And everything you create becomes platform property under the terms of service. So scraping isn't an exception, it's their business model. So if we move to infrastructures where identity and content are user-owned through decentralized identifiers and content addressable storage and a lot of things that we now currently have at our disposal, then platforms cannot longer extract data by default, cannot feed the artificial intelligence that they are building to harm people. And preventing scraping is not a policy fix. I think it's an ownership fix, so to say. So that is where technology and decentralized technology becomes so important, because only technology can replace this trust in corporations that is anymore is the case with cryptographic guarantees. And technology does not solve everything, of course, but it gives us the first real way to embed accountability into the system instead of retrofitting it ex post, which is useless. So this is my point. To hold big tech accountable, we need to engineer accountability into the system, because the harm is infrastructural and the solution must be also infrastructural.
So thank you for this. This was really, really good. And I agree. But I partly agree because, okay, let me tell you where we come from. So as I said, I'll have to link it to a little bit the work we've been doing. This was my full-time job for the last year and a half. When I quit, I didn't know what to do, but eventually I landed in this. And by sitting together, I think I was blessed to build a real interdisciplinary community, as in sitting together with technologists, but also humanitarians. People worked in the, creating legal, like humanitarian frameworks, human rights, and working with the UN and that and this. And so when we put this together, first of all, here's one thing we agree on. We need to come on all fronts. So what you said is correct, but I don't think we all should put, eventually it has to be that, but I don't think there's only one solution, unfortunately, because we're up against power dynamics, something much bigger than AI. But because AI, quite frankly, is the latest technology and is the hype, so everything is being amplified. Every harm of society is being, taken by AI and made worse and made more visible and easily spread, and etc., etc. So meanwhile, because architectural sort of change and infrastructure change, as you said, or like accountability rooted in that is going to take time, and is also actually very difficult to implement, because you still have to. So who's the infrastructure owner? It's the same people. Actually, you're talking about the same big tech. So, well, I mean.
No.
Who did you mention then?
I'm talking about decentralized technologies that are not in the hands of big tech.
Okay, gotcha, understood. Okay, yeah. Well, in the meantime, what we're trying to say is, I mean, in the meantime, because this is going to take generation, or we don't know, there is harm that's been occurring. And because that harm is occurring, and nobody, and we have some legal cases that it's not tied to institutions. Even if institutions failed us, we still have to go down that route to embed AI reporting and harm reporting into the UN Foundation. Every year, the UN has an AI, a harm, kids, like for children rights monitoring reporting system that goes. And every year, the perpetrators of these violations go into the General Assembly, and it's a list of shame. And everybody's scared to be a list of shame. Imagine something like this now for AI. You get into human rights violation. Once you link, and the reason why we focus on harm was actually weeks of work, because we didn't want to focus on risk. We didn't want to focus on potential. We wanted to focus on the closest to legal and accountability, which was already. So it's not, I think unions also have a role to play in terms of bringing, like pressure internally. I think civil society, we have a pressure to play. I think we need to build alternative models, like you said, decentralized, like small language model, community-led, imagine a new sort of technology. But I just don't feel like it's one solution only. This is too big. Yes, I think there's a
Francis.
Yeah, okay. Let me maybe play the devil's advocate and defend AI. First, all your list of harms, it's good to list harms, but any technology, you can make the same list. I can make it about computers, about the internet, about electricity, about transport. If I look at transport, I will see that there are thousands of people killed every day by trucks and by cars, and I can make a map of all the harm done by transport in the world. And then people will say, yeah, but what's the alternative? We can't stop transport. Yeah, because transport has a lot of advantages, and I claim that AI also has a lot of advantages. And while it's good to know where the harms is and try to minimize those, we also should look at all the positives. Let's say that you are a poor person somewhere in India, and you have just an internet connection, and you have some big problem where you really have no idea how you would solve it, and you ask it to AI, and you get for free an answer that solves your problem. I think that's a very big benefit.
Have you heard about cases where actually solved? No, I mean, like, I'm all for it, but
there are lots of cases. There are many more cases where AI has solved problems and created problems. Of course,
I'm yet
to make a statistic about that, because people will not complain that AI has solved their problem. They will only complain if AI has created a problem.
For millions of children that have been, what do you think about the million children being daily confronted to harmful content?
And that is a problem, but that's not an AI problem. That's a problem of social media.
Social media is powered by AI algorithm. Under AI?
No. That's too simple. AI, the way we are speaking about AI, is not social media. Social media were there long before AI. I completely agree with you that social media is a very big problem. That there is this addiction, that there is this harm to children. I completely agree with you about that. But AI, I think, is something else, and AI has lots of very big advantages, which you seem to claim that are not there. It's like saying, well, electricity is a very dangerous thing. I can show you thousands of people who have been electrocuted by electricity. We should stop electricity. Yeah, okay, but
I have so many.
electricity, there would be lots of other things that would not be done. And the same for AI.
AI is the fastest now go-to market. So you can have AI go to market before any sort of standardization. Its share, before it goes out to the market, has to go through standard and verification and audits. AI doesn't. How do you feel about that?
I think
anybody can build anything and put it online, and it could harm the scale of which. You cannot compare commodity, transportation or things that actually have gone through stages and stages of evolution and standardization to a technology that have just come and so fast. I mean, you cannot deny the scale and
It's gone
speed
much
of it.
fast. It's
And
gone much
second,
fast.
I have not said that there are not good use cases. The good use cases are need to be actually brought more to public. But right now, if you look at the money, it's mostly I'm happy to send you some reports. It's mostly defense and surveillance. These are the biggest use cases. So AI did not make my life better. It just made my life. It made me just gave my data basically to government and spyware, etc. Some of the second use cases are like social media, and you can argue what AI is, but you cannot pick and choose definition whenever it suits you. Under AI, I talk about technology, about models and algorithms that are powered by machine learning. So we can spend you and I hours discussing what you put into your definition, but that's not the point. I'm here to talk about technology. The fact that I'm using AI, it's because most of and it's a blurred line, what is AI, what is not. But I defined it from the beginning as a socio-economic sort of technical environment, talking from cloud infrastructure, as I put that also into AI, because you don't have AI if you don't have your data center and data. To social media. And social media they've been in every AI forum I have been to. So maybe you can tell them that they shouldn't be part of it. But sorry, in my definition, we can talk semantics here for hours. But the point is,
If there was no AI, the social media will still be there, and the social media was there before AI.
Yeah, but then remove AI, call it technology, and
okay, so technology is bad, so we should stop all technology. That's your
no. Who said that? I said I want technology.
You're implying that all technology has all these problems.
Can I give
and sorry, just Thomas, one last point.
Sure.
The reason why you brought me here is because you have enough people in the world telling you how technology is great and buy it into the AI hype. You didn't bring me here so I can give you use cases of AI. It was very clear that I was here to raise awareness about the harm and to build a community so we can put pressure so we can actually build technology for good. I spent 15 years building technology. I love doing that more than anything. The only reason I left is that the technology was not serving humans. And I give you 1,000 of proofs and evidence, fact-based, that this isn't helping human. If anything, it can be helping a part of humanity, which is mostly male, white, dominated, Western-centric, but it's not helping the global majority. That's just fact-based.
Okay, I disagree. I think it's helping many more people than it's harming.
The poor person in India, that's using
ChatGPT. The poor person in
India
are precisely the people who will use it because they can't get access to a university to ask a professor about how to solve their problems. They can.
No, unfortunately, no. And I can bring you a lot of Indians that would probably.
I think, Asma, let me kind of, because we have to continue the debate and more questions are here. So this is exactly the energy we want to build here. We have to confront this thing, and I think that it's interesting because you both have perspectives claiming the opposite, and it's a factual. It's basically a factual topic. Like when you say, I just want to double, because if we build roads only to transport guns and and bad things and to do kidnapping, the best use of a road is to kidnap people because you can do so, then roads are bad. But if roads are for ambulances first, and then like in the 100th position for kidnapping, then we have to say, okay, well, maybe roads are good because we transport food, we can transport sick people and so on. But when you say AI major use, because I know this is also for power, and the whole thing of like take shorter showers and all that is a sort of like a smoke argument to make people feel good about what what they do. But is it? I'm not aware of this. I'm asking like really from pure ignorance. Is it true that the major use is in surveillance and like a defense? Well, because defense also could be good, There are good things about defense. Not everything about defense is bad. So I wonder if this kind of like disaggregation of the amount of energy, amount of infrastructure, amount of computation, amount of everything is available because you have done this, like I'm asking from ignorance. I use AI to write, to correct what I write and but I know that I'm a minor user of this. And so I've seen these like distributions where you can see that certain activities really take 80% of the whole activity of something, certain particular use cases. So can you please, or if anybody has to say something about it, because I think it's fundamental. The harm, I mean, the harm will be
I don't think
dependent
it's
on that, on the
fundamental. I
distribution of
don't
use
think it's
cases.
fundamental. I mean, if somebody uses something for something that may be a bad harm, it does not mean that somebody else using it for something else, therefore, it's not the amount. Suppose that one road is used 90% for carrying guns and 10% to carrying food. Would you say, okay, we'll block the road and now no food can be transported anymore? It's not that simple.
Well, exactly. It's not that simple. This analogy is so simplistic. The fact that you're ignoring all of the things that I said that are systemic. I mean, I will just repeat myself again. A road goes
No,
through a
no.
lot of just a road, public infrastructure, everything in the world. Because before they go to public, they go through standardization. What is the standard right now? Where is the sort of technical audit that AI has to go through before they go to people?
Well,
and the EUA Act, by the way, the EUA Act is a great acknowledgement, yes, but actually, I don't know if you've read the news recently. Ursula von der Leyen is just shook hands with big tech that they're actually backtracking on many of the things. Even that little effort, the fact that you can, Dr. Francis, you can claim that this is like a road and people, but this is a very, simplistic and outdated thinking. The fact that EU has decided that solve the issue, and it's even far from being enough. The fact that millions of kids are exposed daily and not protected. The fact that people from marginalized communities are not. The fact that our knowledge. The fact that your students in the university, there's no way of knowing if what they're producing is real, authentic, or hallucination. The fact that medical diagnosis work better for white skin than for black skin. These are not just, because we built a road. I mean, and so what? So because this, even if we go from your reasoning, does that mean I should just let it happen? There has to be people speaking up, even if, you know what I mean?
You have to find out what goes wrong, but you don't have to reject the baby with the bathwater.
But you're being very defensive. Nobody rejected technology, and you don't own the technology. We've built it. I just said that I would like AI to cure cancer. But in order to cure cancer, we should divest from defense and spyware, trying to spy on everyone, or build erotic stuff for kids, and maybe invest in actual, AI diagnosis and treatment for cancer. So
which is being done, and AI is being used for thousands of things in the world, and you pick out all the worst ones. And is that 1%? You claim
that's my question. Is it 1%?
It's like it's 80%. No.
Yeah. No, it's the point is that these bad things are actually more than what we will see, I think, no? Defense, these are big budgets. Anyways, Hyun-So, I think you want to speak as well?
Yeah. By stopping AI.
Okay.
Defense budgets will always be big.
Okay, thank you. I also actually want to use this sign in the program, but somehow it didn't work, so that's why I tried to show my hands like this. Well, Asma, today's insight on AI ethics were extremely valuable. And in my organization, and maybe many of the other organizations, doing like same. So we are heavily investing in AI adoption or developing several AI-enabled services. And I'm actually a risk manager. So from a risk management perspective, I also monitor the related risk continuously. So AI ethics has always been on our risk radar. Yeah. but the level of some of the internal discussion on the ethical implication remains relatively limited, to be honest. And also regulation like EU AI Act or Data Act tend to be, internally perceived as more as obstacles that could be slow down innovation rather than as essential guardrail. I'm just talking about from my observation in the practice. So I think your ideas to monitor the AI, how we are using AI more ethical way is really important. And so I think from your perspective, how can we address this gap? Between the gap means we have many people or we see somehow enthusiasm around innovation efficiency, but on the other hand, we should all think about somehow AI more using in ethical way. So my question again back how we can actually address this kind of gap academically or socially. And do you know some public engagement strategies or somehow policy mechanisms? Are there any way how we can actually address this kind of gaps more efficiently, and maybe some solution or answer?
It's such a good question. Actually, I did spend 3 years before Amazon in consulting. I was and actually in risk also in Deloitte, and I was we had a big team for risk and cybersecurity. And I think cybersecurity is a little bit before, it was before Gen AI, and I think a lot of the things you can take from cybersecurity, you can take them to AI. I think from a corporate perspective and what's chunks to be implementable, because true, like said this way, the story I gave make it sound like oof. So what can companies do? Like it's because I addressed it from an external pressure point of view. I did not look at it from like internally, but throughout this last year and a half, I've met a lot of people in these consulting firms and so on, very interested in applying ethics, but like what operationalizing ethics in companies and corporation. I think it's still it's not that this field is not mature. A lot of people want, but they don't necessarily, they take risk management frameworks. I think right now, I'm sure if you've been working on this, you can the IEEE or the ISO are ways they give you ISO 42001 for AI or so on. They give you kind of very tangible things to do in terms. I think we need to go beyond that and engage into I think for me, one way of doing it is engaging with civil society. There's a lot of organization working on digital rights, and they actually have recommendations waiting. It's just that we don't talk enough to them. When I was in Deloitte or Amazon, I never spoke with civil society. I was so busy, implementing strategies and all. But I think we can gain a lot of insights by doing that. So I've developed a design governance lab, which is exactly the idea is really to take chunks of ISO, of IEEE, of governance models that we can implement, bring in people working in corporation, but also bring in a little bit of civil society and see what we can make. So I'm sorry, I don't have but I think we're going to have to experiment and prototype. And if you're interested in this kind of conversation, by all means, reach out. I've been also exploring, because at the end of the day, I just don't want to sit in my corner and just complain about AI, as Dr. Francis made it sound like. I actually am genuinely interested in change. I'm a change manager at heart. So for me, again, it was like all fronts. civil society pressure from outside, build the links to accountability and legal frameworks. Good. But then what can we do from inside companies that have a desire to change? And we can start by different, even middle management, different sort of departments wanting and inspiring other even teams in the company.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
We have still like 10 to 15 more minutes of discussion if anybody wants to say something. Okay, you can interrupt me because I want to say something, but interrupt me because my comments are the least important here. I have this, I'm in Morocco at the moment, your country, working with a university that is trying to develop some sort of project for Africa, let's say. So this is like the global south, this is oppressed historically, blah, blah, blah. And I think that here there is more space, to try out things, to try things out, to start maybe at the governmental level is easier to get, it's easier to test things, to implement, and so on. So as Chitra was saying, also Malaysia is intending to be a player in this discussion because you got the more impact. So maybe the government can react. And I also know that Estonia implemented a super ultra digital strategy for the government. So these small countries are more like dynamic, small countries that don't matter that much at the geopolitical scale. They can test these things out. But of course, whatever success story that you can tell is just a story. Because if you don't have the big players like China, US, or the whole European Union, or like the big players don't do this like significant move towards saying, okay, we care about this, we are going to take it into consideration. Same with the global warming or climate change, you want to call it whatever, with migration. So all these big crises require certain like really top political will or corporate will and so on. And then on the other hand, you can try lots of little things at small scale that can be beautiful stories, and eventually they might grow and scale up miraculously almost. So then, is there in your analysis, is there a scaffolding strategy? Because maybe we can start these movements from grassroots communities, and then it reaches local governments and communities, and then regional governments, and then blah 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 blah. So I wonder if there is another maybe story of success for another thing, for roads, let's say, or for fruit, or for I don't know, transgenics, or for feminism. That these movements have grown up somehow, and I wonder what's the ontogeny of these movements. So what are the conditions or the path, the imaginable paths for this? Have you made this analysis of looking at other movements that were impossible to imagine, like end slavery, and then it ended at some point. So of course it ended, but at least it ended in the in the US. It ended in the places where you were having thought impossible to end, and then it moved to another place. Anyways, but so just want you to go around this space of thoughts if you have any.
Beautiful. I really like this topic. And as I said, this is the imagination part is very important in movements like this, to imagine, to be able to think that, to draw from success from other stories, other movements. To be honest, right now, no, because we've only got limited capacity. And as I said, we've been treating this topic as a matter of life or death, because it is actually for some people. Like when I mentioned surveillance and spyware, this is currently powering drones, the drones that are actively killing people. So we treated this topic with this urgency. And so we've been exploring and brainstorming on ways of doing that. But honestly, what we want to do, and in a vision, we for us to grow and also to be able to be sustainable, we want this positive and imagination and different routes. And as I said, like the use cases of AI, beautiful, like nice use cases, but also as you said, stories that work, that could work again. Just in our community, in our group, we have I think now 1,200 people who signed up in our website, really different countries, different disciplines. And we have a smaller group chat with 50 people. And just in that group, it's really nice to see people, from Indonesia discussing, with someone from the US or from Ghana. So yes, it is at a very small scale, and something has been in the back of our minds. But I'm not gonna lie and say we have a strategic vision for that. I think the vision we have right now is to push towards the systemic reporting of AI harms, have it there, explain to people that these are patterns, a push for change at a technology level, at the builders level, at the big tech, and so on. And I think only then we can a little bit relax and tackle topics that are exciting.
Mm-hmm. No, thank you. Yeah, I think this is an interesting. I mean, I'm not an expert on this. I know at the VUB there are people that maybe have a lot more to say about how these sociological transitions go on, and I think it will be good to rescue a little bit from that knowledge to try to find paths.
Yeah, I see that somebody shared the ethical frameworks.
Yeah,
I think
that's
it's
Francis.
a very good, starting point. Like the UNESCO started, but here's the thing with this framework: they're great, I like them, but they're not enforceable. Again, you can have all the frameworks and again things that you want, but I think if you work in corporations and this, that it's not enforceable. Like, when I used to start with the framework. When I went to a client in Deloitte, I'll give them a nice framework. It will be a slide. They like it. And eventually they do what they want in business because nobody's, it's nice to have it on a slide. And that's the thing. We push from that. We try, but they're not enforceable. So they were not once profit over society, growth and profit over anything else. As long as we are in this, we run risks.
Yeah, it's very difficult, challenging process. How to because it's connected to all the other stuff that you say, to the wars, to the education, to sustainability. So it's Francis, please.
Just one question. I am well acquainted with Ben Goetzel, who is an AI specialist and who insists on open source AI. So he wants to have the AI as democratic as possible. That means that anybody would be able to develop his own AI system. What do you think about that?
I've always been a big supporter of open source. I feel like this democratizing again. Technology and offering. I've been pushing. I've been supportive of all the pushing big tech to open their codes and all. But yeah, supporting initiative of open source. I just feel like it's the right thing to do. What do you think?
I also think it's a good thing, but some people are afraid of that because there's people who are worried about existential risks of AI getting crazy and killing all people. They tend to think that the more AIs there are around, the more difficult it is to control them. I don't actually think much about these dangers, so I think it is probably a good idea to have them more open.
Okay, this is such a good point, and thank you for actually bringing existential risk. So what I've said right now, I've never mentioned any time existential risk, because existential risk is the risk in 20, 30 years of extinction. Jeffrey Hinton was one of those. A lot of big sort of AI godfathers have been focusing. That's not my focus. In fact, I don't worry about extinction risk and so on. And very often, honestly, I feel the narrative is going too much behind this extinction risk of humanity and big thing. What I'm telling you is very concrete cases. I just want children's safety safeguard. I just want to make sure that an environment impact before we build a data center. I just want money invested in health and global health and stuff like that. I actually almost reject this narrative of AGI as an extension, because I feel like it's not the time. We've got enough to fix right now, and it's bringing a lot of unnecessary fear when in fact we could focus. So while I've seen you've criticized the fact that I've brought harm, but my harm is actually very fact-based and very rooted in lived experience and human community, as opposed to something hypothetical in 20, 30 years. That's not my focus, and I haven't been supportive of those claims.
Yeah, okay, I agree with you. There are much more important and concrete problems at the moment than the existential risk. But at the same time, I also believe that AI can help us solve a lot of these concrete problems.
I agree with you. I agree with you. In that, I totally agree.
Let's keep it there then.
Exactly. I think
For
we
the
are
sake
the last thing.
of a peaceful ending. Yeah. Yeah.
Good.
So,
but I'm here to bring the truth, whether it's you like it, I would say, or not. But yeah,
no,
really enjoyed this.
We appreciate your seminar, your talk, because as the objective of this series is to analyze the concept of value in a very broad sense with respect to AI. So it's not all, we have had philosophers, we have had like people more in the technology or in the market trends, so the underlying basis at which the concept of value is discussed is different for every speaker. And you brought another perspective, which is the one based on we value not harming, like taking the good of this, but like taking seriously the harm that this good can bring, and then like check it out whether is it valuable or not if it produces that much harm. And the regulation aspect that you mentioned, I think it was very constructive to say, like, nobody says we should stop, but we should like stop the harm, like make sure that this is because of the marginalization and all that. So it's a very important aspect that is typically overlooked in the powerful circles. So that's also necessary to look at from our broad perspective. We want all the perspectives. So with this, I think we can thank Asma. Thank you for your talk. And this is going to be recorded and available online for the future. So in case you want to contact Asma or something, you can drop me a line if you don't have her contact, but she's again on LinkedIn, and also you can reach the Ethical Alliance as well.org, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So with this, we finish. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.
Good to see
Thank you very
and
much.
let's meet up for next month for the next seminar.
Have a great weekend, everyone.
Yes.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.